All right. So, first of all, I would like to thank you all for joining the session. So, today's topic is about introduction to document understanding and document understanding framework. So, basically, they will actually give you an overview about the UiPath document understanding. And we actually have a series that will be happening. And I'll talk more about the series at the latter part of the session, but mainly we're trying to uncover how AI-powered automation will be able to help us in our day-to-day activities, or in let's say in our customer, in the customer side, and basically to be able to leverage on UiPath and its AI capabilities to help and support our organizations or even our day-to-day activities within the workforce. I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. So my name is Sean. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. I've been with Ingram Micro for a little over 2 years now, and I'm a UiPath MVP. So our agenda for today would be to talk about UiPath Business Automation Platform, a quick overview and run through about what the product is, the current challenges that we have on document processing, document understanding overview, document understanding framework, as well as a demo on the framework itself, as at the same time how document understanding works. When we talk about UiPath as an enterprise platform and how UiPath maximizes value by enabling automation at the enterprise scale, I actually think of the things you're seeing in the screen. One is it actually has complete end-to-end capability with everything in one place. It provides you best-in-class UI automation together with API integration, so that you can automate across your technology landscape and expand into a broader set of processes. It also has scalability built in terms of being able to provide the required enterprise security and deployment experience across the platform itself. Let me just remove this. Sorry. I know it's blocking, so anyway. And yeah, it also provides you the governance and security at an enterprise enterprise scale. So when we talk about UiPath Business Automation Platform, it's actually a comprehensive platform and an enterprise-ready platform that connects your people, the processes, and applications within the enterprise, so that you can actually implement the process change that drives through transformation quickly. The business automation platform also removes the biggest blockers in process transformation. UI and API automation in combination means your core processes can run with the speed and reliability of API-based integration. And at the same time, UI automation can go the last mile to truly capture and automate and simplify the work of each individual person in those processes. We have the overall platform in terms of discover, automate, and operate. So the discover pillar actually helps you enable to continuously watch business processes, watch the work, and truly understand how the work actually gets done. And it's not just within an Oracle system or an SAP system, but all across, from email to PDFs to Excel spreadsheets through multiple software as a service systems and traditional legacy systems. The discover pillar helps you to identify issues and be able to mitigate and remediate, as well as be able to identify high ROI areas for automation. Besides that, the automate pillar on the other hand efficiently and reliably helps us to be able to automate and work on the solutions that we actually wanted to build. As I've mentioned earlier, we're leveraging on the powerful API integration as well as UI interaction. We also have what we call long-running workflows and human in the loop, and you'll hear more about human in the loop in the series itself. But and how and the ability of UiPath to be able to seamlessly use AI and machine learning models and skills to seamlessly process information, extract and understand information from documents and communication. So in document understanding, we'll dwell more on that. And finally, the operate pillar is actually allowing us to be able to uh, to showcase and identify how compliant, cost effective, and how integrated our platform is. So UiPath has built-in analytics and performance so UiPath also has built-in analytics to track, measure, and manage the automation in general. We're also able to do continuous testing and effortlessly ensure automation quality. And we also have a unified management and governance so that you know that the whole thing is compliant with your desired IT and security policies. One thing that I would highlight as well would be the availability of UiPath to be deployed seamlessly across different deployment options, whether you're actually wanting to deploy on a software as a service or self-hosted via on-premise or even hybrid option. You actually can leverage UiPath to do that. So that's the summary of what business automation platform is. If you guys would be interested to know more about it, we can set up a session to talk about the overall platform in general. But I wanted to tackle that first before we actually talk about intelligent document processing and document understanding. Now, let's talk more about the challenges that we are facing on document processing. Whenever we are doing document processing, it can be a challenge for many companies due to several factors. One would be it may come in various formats. May come in various structures. And this makes it difficult for us to be able to standardize the processing procedure. One format may be different from the other, right? So whenever we're doing it manually, we have to identify each of the steps that we have to do to process a different format. Another thing or another reason is processing large volumes of documents can be time consuming as well as labor intensive. And this can actually lead to errors and delays as well. We also can have documents that are containing sensitive information, documents that would require and this would require companies to implement strict security measures to protect data privacy. At the same time, regulatory compliance and legal requirements can actually add complexity to document processing. And if we are non-compliant to that, there are actually hefty penalties that will actually come across. So we want to make sure that we are compliant on those regulatory compliance. So document processing automation can actually be a solution as well for every company, and they should actually explore it. Basically, the automated document processing can help reduce errors and delays associated with manual document processing, which in turn can improve efficiency and productivity. Additionally, automation can actually free up excuse me, valuable employees' time and resources, and allow them companies to actually redirect the efforts towards higher value activities as well. And by implementing this technology, such as document management software or OCR and machine learning, companies can also improve the data accuracy and security, which reduces the risk of data breaches and compliance violations. So let's take a look at how manual document processing work. So in a manual scenario, let's say an employee can actually have different sources. It can be coming either from emails, Dropbox, SFTP, a web portal, or even scanned documents that are passed to us humans, right? So, and the document types can be of very high volume, and of course can be on different format, like what I've mentioned. It can be a PDF file, a JPG, TIFF file, zip file, and so on. And what will happen is humans will actually be processing this manually, identifying the business processes, comparing a certain document against the other. And this will actually lead to a high number of average handling time, or can actually result to errors as well that will actually trigger rework and possible losses within the organization. So besides that, after you actually verified, you would then need to maybe perform some data entry. So this is a typical document processing, manual document processing. And the challenges that are put there is like what I mentioned. You extract and interpret the information. You have different document types. It will be time consuming. It can result to human error and loss in terms of profit or and even brand reliability, right? And at the same time, you have manual mundane tasks. So how can we actually turn this problem into a solution? So we can actually delegate a robot to use AI to understand the documents. We can automate the processing and provide or introduce what we call the human in the loop. We can introduce additional cost and time efficiency, as well as we can make the processing and extraction of information a lot more accurate and be processed straight through afterwards. Overall, what we wanted to do is we wanted to be able to put an end-to-end solution powered by AI. And what types of documents can you actually process? Or what type of documents or that are we actually processing manually? And you'll be surprised, it's a lot of documents that every company are actually working on. I won't go through in detail, but this is just to show you the types of documents. And to pick a few, we have invoices, receipts, purchase order, passports, licenses, and bills. These are the most common ones, but it doesn't stop there. You actually have a lot of organizations working and leveraging on still hard copy or scanned documents. And to be able to process those manually is actually very painful for them. So that's why I'd like to introduce UiPath Document Understanding, which actually is a product of UiPath and leverages the power of AI to be able to extract certain information, be able to leverage OCR and also RPA to be able to streamline the processes all throughout. So what is document understanding really, right? So document understanding is the combination and the ability, the combination of different technologies such as RPA, artificial intelligence, and document processing. And what we're trying to do is we're asking the technology or document understanding to extract and interpret the information and even meaning from a wide range of documents. And it's actually emerges from the intersection of the three things that I just mentioned. So to simply put, it's not OCR, it's not just computer vision, and it's actually just not just AI, but actually a combination of the different technology that we have to be able to come up with a solution. Now, what would be the most common features, or what are the features of document understanding? The main one that I'd like to highlight is it offers end-to-end capabilities to use a combination of rules-based and model-based approach to process documents. We actually have what we call a document understanding framework that we will be tackling shortly, but it's a composable framework providing flexibility and guaranteeing users to have the best-in-class technological choices. It's an end-to-end solution for extracting and interpreting information. It supports different types of documents. You have the ability to process the different document file formats as well, such as image, text, PDF file, and it also can, let's say, can help with the quality of documents, such as maybe you have a rotated document or a skewed document. It can automatically rearrange that for you. It can recognize various objects such as handwriting and signatures as well. It uses both template templates and rules and machine learning models to understand the data. And the models part is actually the one that is AI powered capability as well. And it has a lot of pre-trained model that you can easily use as well and readily use, as well as it is available on cloud and on premise. So one thing I skip here is the model retraining. So because it's a typical question, if you already have a model and then there are certain fields that you want to be included, what do we do? So that's where the model retraining comes in. We actually can retrain the model to learn the fields that you would want to capture as well. So which type of documents are handled by document understanding? So we can have different types. We have structured documents, semi-structured, and unstructured documents. So the structured ones are the ones that are normally not changing. It's fixed in format and can contain handwriting, signatures, or checkboxes. So these are typically forms. We also have semi-structured documents. So semi-structured documents are invoice, purchase order, receipts, medical bills. So typically, these are the ones that would contain variable parts like tables. So if, let's say, you have receipt, you have quantity, you have the description, you have the price, and so on. So these are typical semi-structured documents. And you'll actually have unstructured documents like contracts, agreements, emails, and so on. This is actually the unstructured documents. The unstructured documents part will probably be tackled in the next series of sessions, mainly in terms of emails and agreements and contracts, especially the AI-powered document understanding. It will be tackled as well there fully. So now I've talked about the overview of document understanding, what it does, and what are the documents that would typically be part of this document understanding project. I'd actually want to show you how the product looks like, or what are the steps that are happening within the product's ecosystem. Again, this is just an overview. In the next session, which will be on Thursday, which will be conducted by another speaker, we will be talking closely about how each of the activities would look like, and what are the things that we should consider when building the solution. So how the document understanding works is actually comprised of a series of steps. So assuming you already have a document, and it can be a structured, semi-structured, or unstructured document, the robot actually, or document understanding actually does this in a series of main steps, such as loading of the taxonomy. So loading of the taxonomy is where we actually try to define the document type, as well as the fields that we are capturing, or that we wanted the robot or document understanding to understand. We also have a digitized stage, and this is where the document understanding tries to obtain the information using OCR and actually gets the text out of the image or the document. We also have a classification stage, and classification stage is where the documents are split. So let's say you have maybe 5 pages and it's comprised of different document types. The classification stage actually splits those documents, identifies that this is a different document from the other page, and so on. And it actually classifies that and tells you, okay, this is an invoice, this is a receipt, this is a purchase order, and so on. So that's what is being done in the classify stage. You'll notice that within the classify stage, it actually passes back directly to either two things. Either it goes to extract or it goes to validate, because there are certain documents that the robot is not really confident about immediately. So it can actually pass it to the humans. We have been talking about human in the loop earlier. So it will pass it to the humans to validate. And after the human validate, it actually goes to auto retraining. So, and after it retrains, it's able to classify it again further next time, and a lot more confidently, it will actually go to extract. So so that's what happens. You're actually introducing the training and retraining as well within the framework itself. After that, we have the extract stage. Extract is where the robot actually gets the information based on the different methods that it has been presented, or that it can actually do, whether using a let's say a different extractor and so on. We'll show that to you later. But yeah, so it's actually where it's getting the document, the information from the document, and at the same time you can also validate that accordingly. So based on a certain confidence level, based on a confidence score, the robot will identify whether it has to pass it to the humans to go to validate and for continuous training afterwards, or it can actually export. Assuming the confidence score of the robot is actually higher than what we have trained it to do, or have considered to use, then it will actually begin to export it accordingly. However, if it falls below that, then that is where the time that it will ask the human to validate. And you'll be surprised how the humans can validate, because you're actually able to validate using just a mobile phone via, if you log into the, let's say, cloud.uipath.com, and then you have access to Action Center, you can actually validate from there as well, or through your laptops and so on. So after that, we export. And the most common question is, when you export, what is the output format? So the output format will depend on your business requirements, or the outflow will be dependent on how you want it to be. You can simply just output it as a CSV file, or an Excel file, or you can actually ask the robot to enter it directly into a different system, or enter it into your, let's say, ERP system and so on. So you have that capability and that option, and that is because your, as we've mentioned earlier, document understanding is a combination of different technologies such as RPA, OCR, as well as AI and ML. This is just a quick view of how the taxonomy manager looks. So this is where we actually try to identify the documents. Whenever you're creating a document and so on, you're identifying that. You're also identifying the file, the fields, like such as the field name, field type, and so on. This is available in the UiPath Studio. You digitize the text via using OCR as well. So that's the digitization phase. So different types of documents you can actually digitize. And then this is done at the back end. So I wanted to highlight, when you're running a document understanding, all of these things are running at the back end. So you're not actually seeing them digitize it and so on. You're actually, it's actually coming out with an output for you in digital format already. The document can be classified accordingly. So I've mentioned the classify stage. Classifies, determines the different document types. It can also to make sure that the document that you have is, let's say, is not rotated or not skewed and so on. So this is the step that actually does the classification. You can actually validate the document as well, depending on the confidence level. So you're seeing here 99%, 100%, and so on. So this goes higher and higher. I mean, 100% is the highest, but classification confidence goes higher and higher after the training of the classifier, or continuous training of the classifier. And you see it's able to determine that these are different report types and so on. And you'll see that later in the demo as well. We have the extraction stage, and the extraction stage allows us to extract the information from the documents. The configure extractor page, which is available in the UiPath Studio, this is actually allowing us to determine and align the fields that we are looking for, what type of extractors we are going to use, such as regex based, form extractor, intelligent form extractor, and so on. And at the same time, we're able to validate and, of course, perform the retraining of the extractors after we've done the validation. And I've mentioned earlier, you can actually export the data. So, and after exporting, you can actually perform additional checks as well, whether you'd want to make sure that certain values are correct or certain actions have to be done and so on. So you will be able to do that also with document understanding. And as I mentioned earlier, you're able to classify and retrain accordingly. So whenever we're dealing with document understanding, we have different types of rules to consider or approaches. Whether, let's say, you have a rules-based document, which is normally a standard document or a standard form. You have AI-based and you have hybrid approach. So rules-based, typically you use regex extractors or form extractors. AI-based, you use forms AI and ML extractors as well. And you can actually use a combination of both. So rules-based relies on certain rules, works on or processes structured data, and it comes up with a high accuracy for already known documents. However, of course, a drawback is if you introduce an unknown document, then that is where it actually begins to drop. The accuracy begins to drop. That is where we actually have pre-trained models and machine learning models that we can actually train and retrain, and to be able to provide continuous learning to that model and be able to work on different documents as well. So there are pre-trained models that are available that we can readily use, meaning these are some of the models that you just plug in and to the document understanding framework, and you're actually able to use that. Of course, some caveat there is there are certain fields that you might need, for example, that might not be easily that might not be readily available or not might readily be able to be read by DU. That is where the remodeling comes in and the retraining of the model comes in. So via UiPath AI Center, you're actually able to see those different pre-trained models as well. If we have time later, I'm actually going to show that the different model types. We also have Forms AI that allows you to do no code and document processing, that you're actually creating a form here. And yeah, as I mentioned, you can also do ML model training via AI Center as well. So that's the PDF part of my presentation. I'm actually going to run you through the document understanding framework. As I've mentioned earlier, this is going to be an overview of the document understanding framework. It's not really a deep dive. We have a deep dive on the framework that will be done by Murtusa on Thursday. And I actually request for you guys to register on that. I'm sharing the links as we in the chat, so the links will be there. You can register for the next sessions. And yeah, so the document understanding framework is actually this one. I'll show it to you in studio accordingly, but this is just how it looks in an overview. No, I'm opening the studio on my side. There you go. All right. So this is the UiPath Studio. Most of you are familiar with it, but for those who are not familiar, I wanted to highlight and showcase first how and where we actually have access to the document understanding framework. So whenever you're accessing UiPath, you have access to different kinds of templates, and these templates are ready to use templates that you can so that you can actually quickly start building your solution. We have, let's say, orchestration process for typical human in the loop solutions that would require human in the loop. RE framework is the most standard framework that we are using for solutions accordingly. Transactional based solution. You can actually have software testing solutions as well via mobile testing and so on. Now, document understanding framework is available or here. So it's called document understanding process. When you open this, by default, you'll actually be having this one. So it comes with uh, as a production ready, POC ready solution. In terms of it has inbuilt rules or business rules incorporated. Of course, you will be modifying those business rules accordingly, depending on the requirements within your customer or your customer requirements. But the document understanding framework will actually allow you to make some to create a POC or even a demo for your customers. And to be honest, this is what I use also for this introduction, right? So whenever you open document understanding process, this is actually what you have. I'd like you guys to focus your attention on the left side of the screen first. Mm, I wanted to talk about some dependencies. So the dependencies are already incorporated for document understanding. So these are by default included as a dependencies here. So you don't really need to go to manage packages and add the various dependencies because some of them are already here. You might need to update it accordingly. So there are certain update options here that you can do. I won't update it now. I also wanted to show you three files. One is the merge document. So merge documents here. The merge documents are actually a sample document that we are going to use, and we're going to run this as well later. But basically, you have a certificate of filing document. You have a sample invoice. You have a sample form, and then you have a sample receipt. So it's a merge document, and later on we'll actually run document understanding to be able to see how DU works on these types of documents, how it actually traverses through the steps. We also have a user guide. So the user guide will actually help you be able to practice on document understanding. It gives you, let's say, the overview, why it's like that, why document understanding process is created that way. You have the process flow of the document understanding for you to be able to learn and understand how the overall DU framework work is built from pre-digitization to exporting of the document, as well as classification and validation. It actually tackles that. It gives you information about the stages as well of document understanding process, the solution within it, how you have to consider the upstream and downstream, as well as the process itself. Some of the changes that you need to introduce to be able to build a solution. So how you're able to start the process, and basically the information that you would need within the studio itself. Whether you're running your document understanding process as attended or unattended, it actually gives you that information there. So I won't go through in detail in this document. It's available for you guys anyway. Now, talking about the framework, we have a config file. So what is the config file? So most of you might have heard about configuration files and so on. Configuration files would actually be the file that is used to be able to make some amendments to your solution without really touching the code itself, but you just need to update the configuration file accordingly. Within this process, or whenever you're going to build your document understanding project, you will need to do something in your UiPath orchestrator. So such as, let's say, creating a storage bucket with this name. the folder DU demo you're actually seeing here as storage bucket directory path, DU input queue. So this is the queue itself that I have here, and also under the same folder accordingly. You have certain constants. In this demo, I didn't make any change there. In terms of the assets, you would need to get the document understanding API key, which is available via admin, and then under licenses. I won't go here, but it's actually under robots and servers. You should have it. And for those who are actually using, let's say, community cloud, you need to check whether you have AI units available. But yeah, so it should be here. It should be named as the API key. So I have another asset here, which is input file folder location for my dispatcher workflow that I actually did or actually used earlier or created for this demo. But mainly the document understanding process configuration file will actually be host the configuration of your solution. You're noticing that there are certain endpoints here as well. This is actually what is being used within the solution. Whenever I call a dictionary value, it actually gets this one. So this is just an overview of the configuration file. You also can put here certain confidence thresholds that you would be using for the robot to know, or for the robot to know really what is the confidence that will actually trigger, let's say, a human, the human in the loop, or the human validation, as well as whether you're actually going to have the human validate all and everything accordingly. So you can actually do that. So going back to the framework or to the process, so I mentioned these are the steps. In the initialize process, that is where we actually initialize the workflow. This is where we are loading the configuration file, and then we are passing the values of the configuration file into a dictionary within the workflow itself. This is where we are actually trying to get the asset as well of certain assets. So we didn't really make some changes here. As I've mentioned, by default, this is prepared for you already by UiPath. So I didn't really make some change in the initialize process. It actually leads you to a question on using queue or not. So if you're using, let's say, main action center or main attendant, main action center, most probably you'll be planning to use some queuing. So if you're using queue, it will actually go to the get transaction item. Otherwise, it will actually flow down to end process, because if there's no data, for example, if you're using queue and then you have a queue item, it will go to get transaction item. If you're not, it will actually check whether you have a target file available. If there is none as well, it will go to end process. So assuming you're using queues, it will go to get transaction item. This is just where we actually ask UiPath to check, or the robot to check if there are transactions to be processed. We didn't really make some change here as well for the demo, and it's built in. I would like to focus on the steps on DU, which is digitize, classify, validate, train, and process. So the digitize stage, this is where OCR is actually being used. Under digitize, you're actually able to make some changes on the different OCR. So the OCR engine, and it's asking you for certain parameters. So on the Thursday session, you'll probably be delving more on the framework activities itself. But yeah, so this is where API keys should be used, and you're noticing in config, those things that you're seeing, it's actually coming from the dictionary. And I've mentioned earlier the config file. So config file is translated into the dictionary within the initialization stage. So that's the digitize stage. The classify stage is actually where the document would be classified, whether it's going to be a type of document or not. So what the robot is doing here, or what DU is doing here, is it's going to to identify the documents, um, whether it's going to be a receipt, an invoice, a W-9 form, or certificate of filing. If you have more documents, yes, you can also put it here. However, of course, that needs to be included in the training. So this by default only includes this. So if, for example, you have purchase order or you have passports and so on, you need to introduce that, and you're actually able to do that via the managed learning. So whenever you're doing a managed learning, you click on yes. For example, there inside the framework itself, you have the learning file, and this is typically how a file should be, or a document should will be trained using the intelligent keyword classifier. Typically, we upload a certain number of documents. Document understanding will actually scan those documents and then get a word vector out of those documents that will be how it will be able to classify it, and you can put more and more. So the framework is actually built on 4 documents accordingly: certificate of filing, invoice, receipt, W-9 form, and so on. And yeah, so the more documents that you put here, of course, the more learnings. And just make sure that you have to put in a documents that will be balanced in terms of numbers, and not really having a lot on something and on one, and then having way too less on the other one. So after you classify, you can actually put some validation rules. You can introduce additional business rules. So this is commented, but you can actually create a business rule and some logic that will be used to be able to determine, let's say, whether the classification is correct or not. So that would be dependent on the business requirements. You also have validate and train. So this is where you actually do the further validation. So create, document, validate, classification, action actually brings out the action for the human to do it. And you're here, wait for document and classification action actually waits for the human's response. You also have train classifier, and this is actually the step that that allows you to retrain the model accordingly, retrain the classifier model accordingly. Similarly, it has the intelligent keyword classifier here, and manage learning button and configure learning buttons. This actually retrains your classifiers further, and yeah, will be tackled on the next sessions as well. This is just an overview of the DU process I'd like to highlight. So that's why and after the classifier, we actually have the extract. So the extraction stage is where you're actually able to have that extraction scope and configure the various extractors that you would be using for your document understanding process or your framework, whether you have a receipt, you have invoice, and so on. This is where you actually put that. So let's say, for example, you have a purchase order, or if you have a passport. So this is where you actually add another extractor accordingly via, like you look for an extractor. So let's say it's a machine learning extractor and so on. You actually put it there. And then if you have an end point for excuse me, for passport and so on, you actually will be putting it here. So by default, what you will notice is it's actually using an endpoint. But when you're actually building your document understanding solution, you'll actually be using the UiPath document understanding service in UiPath Automation Cloud. So you'll probably not use an endpoint but an ML skill. So that is a trained skill, which will be tackled in the next sessions as well. But for let's say for initial ones, you actually use endpoints. And the endpoints, as I mentioned, it's actually included in the config file. So when you open the config file, earlier you've seen certain endpoints like this. So these are the endpoints. This is where it's actually getting the information. So you're triggering, let's say, in config, and then the name, and so on. So this is the dictionary name, the variable for the dictionary, and then the value, the key, the value of the key field. So that is what you're actually going to do there. Mhm. I wanted to highlight that these things, for the endpoints, you need to be mindful of where the or that you're using the link for for that specific endpoint. So you need to check whether the endpoint is actually based in, let's say, uh, Singapore, for example, or based in Europe, or based in Australia, and so on. So you actually have to look at that in the docs.uipath.com as well. After that, you also have the validate and train extractor. So this means that this is the step where the robot actually sends the data for validation action of the humans, for create document validation, data validation action, and it's actually waiting for the human to actually process. And when we mention waiting, I wanted to highlight that the robot is not just pausing there, it's actually able to perform another action. So it will actually put the process in a suspended state for you, so that you can actually it can actually do another task. And then once you have submitted the action, then that is where it will actually get it again. And you're able to retrain the extractors also for continuous learning. So similarly, you're actually able to see here, let's say, a trainer activities, receive extractor trainer, for example, or invoice extractor trainer, and so on. So you actually have that. And of course, you can also, by the way, you can also do the extraction rules check. So let's say if you want, let's say maybe you wanted to check on a certain number of digits, that is just 2 digits or 2 decimal points, or if you're just expecting just a string and not really having numbers, you can actually create some classification rules check, valid extraction rules check here. So you can create certain post-processing uh, uh, business rules to be able to do that, and further validate, to be able to have a more robust solution. And finally, the export, and this is where we actually export the data that was captured using export extraction results. And you can actually come out with the output, and you can actually create an output based on what you would need. I'll just show you the UiPath orchestrator here. So I've actually created a document understanding uh, workflow here. One is called DU demo and DU demo dispatcher. So what we tackled earlier was the DU demo. I'll just run this because it might take some time. So take note of the runtime. It's production runtime. I'll just start this accordingly. It will actually run at the back end. You won't see the other things running until I'm actually going to show the action center. But I just wanted to show you the dispatcher workflow that I created. And this is just for demo purposes. In the dispatcher workflow, I tried to get the asset for the input file folder location. That's where I put in the file that I wanted to use. And I used a parallel for each file. So even if you have multiple files, you're actually able to add multiple files into queues at the same time. Start job and get reference actually runs the document understanding process as well. Sorry, I realized I clicked on this one. I should have run the dispatcher. So I'm actually submitting the merge documents there to the robot. And you'll see that it's running. So yeah, so start job and get reference actually starts the document understanding performer workflow, and then waits for things to complete, and then so it's actually putting it into suspended state. So this is the dispatcher workflow. We can actually zip this and then share it with you guys as well, if and upload it together with the with the page if that's possible. I'll check with the community team. So what you will see here is, since we actually run the workflow, you're noticing that I have jobs that are in suspended. So one is the dispatcher, which is basically the one that put the data into the into to document understanding and the actual process that runs the solution. Now, human in the loop typically happens via UiPath Action Center. This is where us humans can actually collaborate with the robot to be able to perform certain actions, so that the robot can actually work on it, and at the same time we can work with the robot. So the first step, or let's say a user will actually be using document understanding, is they actually have to assign the task to them. So let's say if you have multiple team members, if you have an administrator can actually, or the lead role can actually assign to different users. From my side, it's just me here, so assign it to myself. And the classification actually is able to identify that I have 4 different documents. Right? I have a certificate of filing, I have an invoice, I have a W-9 form, I have a receipt. There would be cases that I might have the classification is not really correct if you didn't really train it properly, or if you train it just for a very few documents. So you can have maybe 75 or 60 and so on. And then you need to further classify. You can actually click on the values here and then save it accordingly. So you can classify it in one go and then just save it. So after you've saved that, the robot will now process it. So you might need to wait a few seconds. The robot will process it, and then it will go to unassigned as well, before it actually extract the information. So here it started to come in already. I have a W-9 form, and yeah, the others have come in as well. I'll just assign this to myself and actually show you. And I'll just actually show you the document. So the W-9 form, for example, you'll notice that it's handwritten. It's able to detect the field name. It's able to see the check boxes, the tick boxes. Let's say it's an individual. Where is it? So yeah, it's able to detect those things. So there are other details that won't be extracted. It's either, let's say, it's not in the form or so. And I wanted to highlight this. You might have customers asking, what if it's not 100%? What if it's below and so on? What if it's wrong? That's where the humans would actually come in. That's the importance of human in the loop. That the robot is there to help us become more efficient and so on, but it's not always going to be 100% automatic. So we need to set the expectations properly for the customers. That the robots, that the humans are actually there to be able to validate. And based on the confidence level, we don't really need to show this every time. So when you guys are confident, you can actually set a confidence threshold for the robot to actually proceed. So here, that the tin, it's actually able to get, there's no EIN, so it actually just put blank certification signature. It's able to detect that there's a signature here as well as certain date. So once you actually done that, it's actually, you're going to submit it and the robot will actually process it at the back end. You see there's a there's a play icon here. That means the robot is actually working. And then you can actually proceed with other documents as well. So in the certificate of filing, we're just considering file number, the date and the effective. You just check it and then you continue and so on. So what I wanted to show would be, let's say, the invoice. For example, here you're actually seeing the name of the invoice. The name is Serious Cybernetics Corp. The vendor address. It's actually able to divide as well into city and country and so on. The billing name, the shipping address. So here, this is where us humans would come in. We know that Choam is the name, so we just correct it accordingly. Let's say date, and it's actually highlighting and putting a line. So you might be asking, how do we know whether it's a month or year and so on? So in the taxonomy, you're actually able to do those things within the taxonomy training. So we're able to do that. Yeah. So but basically this is how it looks. In terms of, I'm skipping the others in the interest of time. In the items as well, you're actually able to see that the robot is able to, let's say if you have a line item, for example, it's NA here, you have description, you have the quantity here, the unit price, and so on, line amount. So you're actually able to create some rules and validations accordingly with the document understanding solution. Yeah, so and then you just submit. I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm skipping this part, but yeah, you're able to see it, actually able to extract certain information as well, and then you can actually do some further validations at the end. Yeah, so there might be some questions. So there's a question from Sankar Lal. How do I set up extraction if I possess numerous invoice, each with a unique format tailored to individual vendors? So first of all, you need to train it like in the classify. So it's the same invoices. So okay. You need to determine the fields that you have for each of the invoices. Is it having the same fields that you would have to capture? So that's one of the key things that you have to consider as well. And then you need to do data labeling. I would suggest maybe have, so with this different individual vendors, if you have the same fields, if you're actually able to train the model accordingly, the robot should be able to know that it's an invoice. The robot should be able to determine that this is the invoice number, this is the purchase, this is the name, and so on. So it's not going to be template based anyway. It's going to be let's say a machine learning model for the invoice. So it should be good. But you have to train the model accordingly for different invoices. And I'm happy to discuss this further, San Carlal, with you. But yeah, so you should be able to do it with even if it's different invoices accordingly. But we need to know you need to know whether you have different fields and so on, especially the table items. Yeah, so and that is where the model retraining would actually help. So yeah, I would just, before we end, I just wanted to highlight that we have upcoming events as well. We have Document Understanding Framework Activities Deep Dive, which will be done by Mortusa on this coming Thursday. We also have Document Understanding Framework with the Human in the Loop. We'll focus mainly on the human in the loop functions here. Ash is actually here to help on that one. And we also have AI-powered document understanding, which will be conducted by Lahiru. Who's an expert on document understanding. Overall, I think that should be it. I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn if you have any queries. Thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us in today's session. I hope you learned something.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.